Story 1. My best friend's parents fled from Afghanistan and only speak Dari. The mother knits me hats and has made me so much food. The father pinches my cheek even though I am very much an adult. I would love to tell them how much love they have filled my heart and stomach with, and how grateful I am for the fact that they are part of my life now. They are amazing. Story 2. So I could hang out with my best friend's family and freak them out by chiming in mid-conversation when they think they're being sneaky by making fun of me in their native language. Story 3. Navajo, because I heard once that it is extremely difficult to learn. It was from that American who speaks fluent Chinese and films the reactions of native Chinese speakers. Story 4. Te Reo Maori. I live in New Zealand, and the language is being brought back from the point of extinction. I feel this in particular as I come from parents whose mother tongue is Welsh, but I don't have the Welsh language myself, for many of the same reasons that a generation or two of Maori don't have Te Reo here. Story 5. Spanish, because it is the most useful second language to have in Texas. Plus, it opens up most of South and Central America much more. That is a great place to travel, but difficult if you do not speak the language. Story Chai Bangla. My husband is Bengali but never speaks Bangla. The kids never learned a word of it. His dad and almost all his family speak English so we can chat, but his mom doesn't, and I really want to be able to speak to her. She is such a sweet lady. He has a large family, so warm and welcoming. They all live in India, and we do visit India every couple of years. I would love to be able to shock them all by speaking fluent Bangla. I tried learning, and I am good with languages. I speak 4 languages already, but Bangla has been such a tough nut to crack for me. Even though I spent months immersed in the language, I couldn't get beyond a few phrases. It is also a fascinating language and one of the most widely spoken languages in the world. Story 7. Portuguese. So I could have a conversation with my husband's grandma in Brazil. She's getting older, and it would be nice to connect with her before she passes. Story 8. Ukrainian or Arabic. I work in a school, and many of our families are refugees who don't speak any English. Trying to communicate is hard on both sides. Some parents try, while others completely refuse. I often feel awkward having their child translate for us what we need to tell their parents. Story 9. French, Portuguese, or Dutch probably. French and Dutch so I have access to those countries for work and lifestyle, and Portuguese because I have many friends who are native Portuguese speakers and I would love to return the favor of speaking to them in their language. Story 10. I live in an Arabic country, and a lot of my students speak Arabic. While it seems incredibly difficult to learn, by listening to Arabic adults speak to one another daily, I've come to really enjoy the language, even though it appeared harsh at first. Story 11. Greek is one of the oldest languages, and when you study it, you realize how much of our current language today across the world comes from it. Story 12. In terms of earning power and status, it would probably be something really obscure. If you can speak Basque when you are not Basque, you would get on local TV, radio, and every bar in Bilbao would probably give you free tapas. Finnish or Georgian might be similar, so you are probably looking for a language that people don't learn in an area that's pretty rich. Like I could probably make a good living as the white guy who plays the bad guy in Hindi, or Indonesian, or even Korean movies if I spoke those languages. Story 13. Sotho and Xhosa. I feel like I'm missing out on so much seeing most people in South Africa talk those two. Yeah, English and Afrikaans are cool, but I still feel like an outsider in my own country. Story 14. I've been trying to learn Danish on and off for years. If I could become fluent in Danish, learning Swedish and Norwegian would be quite close, whereas if you start with one of them, the others are harder. Then you know 3 languages and you're not far from getting Icelandic too. Story 15. I'm mostly Welsh. It's a beautiful, complex language, and it's fun to say a lot of the words. I tried learning it, but Duolingo was not helpful and was teaching me to say useless things I'd never need, like, I am a house husband. However, it wasn't teaching me any of the basic rules for the language. Story 16. I want to learn Spanish so I can communicate more efficiently with the laborers at work. I appreciate them, but when they start insulting me in Spanish and I only understand the bad words, it hurts not being able to respond similarly. Story 17. Japanese and German. Japanese because I love the culture, cuisine, and overall Japan as a country. German because my work deals with a lot of the German language. I'm learning both and getting better at both. Story 18. Japanese because I want to be able to speak to half my family. It's kind of sad that I can't speak, but I can at least understand just enough to grasp the gist of any conversation. Story 19. Scottish Gaelic, my mother's native tongue, was beaten out of her in school in the 1950s and 1960s, so she never spoke it to me. It was looked down upon as an ignorant and foolish language, and as a consequence of centuries of oppression, it is now on the back foot. My wife is a native speaker, thankfully my children are too, and I am surrounded by people who are native speakers, but I really struggle to get to grips with it and be confident in using it. Story 20. My wife's family is from Kerala, and after 25 years of marriage, I still really only know a handful of words and phrases. It's a tricky language to learn, but I just love the way it sounds. Story 21. Accounting is known as the language of business because it is a common communication system for financial information about companies and organizations. It is important to understand accounting because it is critical to any business, yet many people do not fully understand it. Story 22. If I could instantly learn any language, it would be Mandarin. With over 1 billion speakers and such a rich history, it would be incredible to connect with so many people and experience their culture on a deeper level. Plus, it would open up amazing opportunities in business and technology, especially with how much China influences the world today. Story 23. Frisian. I live in Friesland, a province in the Netherlands. I moved here 5 years ago. I prioritized learning Dutch first, and I'm almost fluent. I would like to be fluent in Frisian. Learning a new language is really tough. Story 24. Japanese. I speak a little, but I'd love to be fluent, go back, and just converse for the entire time, blowing their minds. It's very respectful to be a foreigner and speak fluently in the native tongue. The perks will surprise you. Story 25. Visayas because I'm already doing Tagalog and making progress, but if I could talk to my wife's mom in Visayas and my wife still can't, it would be like a comedy movie moment. Story 26. I want to instantly know every language, but if I had to pick only 3, they would be 1. Mandarin. It would be great for traveling in Asia in places like Singapore and Malaysia. Plus, it gives a head start into other languages like Japanese and Cantonese. Spanish, also travel-related, for most of South America, plus a head start on Italian and Portuguese. French, just cool. I mean, I would like to know German too, to give me a head start on all the Scandinavian languages, but knowing those languages does not add as much value to traveling there. Basically, I am judging this whole thing by travel. Story 27. Japanese, so that I will be able to read the ingredients on any food items. I have certain food allergies, so it's a struggle to translate ingredients to see if it's safe for me to eat. Story 28. I have been studying Japanese for 15 years and am preparing to take the N1 exam after passing the N2 5 years ago. I'd like to finally bridge the gap and wake up at native speaking levels. Story 29. Hebrew is first because it is something I want to know. Spanish is second so I can talk to more people in their native language. German or French is third because I learned them long ago but mostly forgot them. Story 30. Japanese because I've always wanted to go. Many of the best experiences are in places where they don't speak English, like these little hole-in-the-wall bars and noodle carts, for example, and the very ultra-niche electronics and surplus shops in the Akihabara district. Story 31. Esoteric language expertise in a wide degree of professional applications instantly would help me direct certain tautological structures in a systematically perfect-to-definition way. The implications are beyond comprehension and will likely be impossible for me to bring about without this magical thinking. Story 32. 2 countries that I really love, including their culture and languages, are Thailand and Japan. I also like Latin American and Spanish culture in general. I would love to speak Thai, Japanese, and Spanish. Too bad I only speak English and Korean. Story 33. Being fluent in German, almost fluent in English, knowing a few words of Spanish and French. I feel like knowing Mandarin, and due to that, having easier access to Japanese would really add to this mix nicely. Story 34. Japanese. Been studying it for years, but it feels impossible if you aren't properly immersed. Been studying for the better part of 6 years and am probably no closer to fluency than when I started. Story 35. I am pretty fluent in Korean, but the constant studying to reach perfect fluency or native level speaking is so hard that I wouldn't mind not having to make this last effort. Either that or Mandarin, I think. Story 36. Portuguese. It would be amazing to speak so beautifully and understand the poetry and lyrics. Russian, to be able to read their classics in the native language. Icelandic, they have such a weird sense of humor, and it would be interesting to understand it through the language. Story 37. Spanish, but all the dialects. I'm an apartment manager and have residents and guests from Puerto Rico, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, and several other Spanish-speaking countries. Google Translate is not very effective. I've learned a bit from my Puerto Rican residents and understand it more by hearing than by speaking it. I'm from the South, and my accent doesn't help. Story 38. Chinese, because it's a huge, complicated language that a large portion of the world speaks. Also, I could negotiate business deals between countries, which would be fun and cool. Story 39. There have been quite a few times where I've encountered Spanish speakers with coworkers or customers. The 2 years I took in high school aren't much to go off of, especially since all of that went out the window anyway. Story 40. German, with Japanese a close second. Japan creates a lot of games and media that I love, so I'd love to understand it firsthand. I'd be looking to move to Germany if it's easy, though. Story 41. Finnish. No one speaks this outside of Finland. It's not taught a great deal outside the country. It's niche. They are wealthy. Could be very useful and lucrative. Story 42. Old English, which ironically has one word that would be very easy to understand, is the word understand. Funnily enough, I learned that while watching a Rick Astley video of all things. Story 43. Mandarin is spoken by nearly 2 billion people. It is also completely unrelated to any European languages, so I would have trouble learning it. Therefore, it would be the one I would choose to magically master. Story 44. It would open a lot of job opportunities, and learning Japanese would allow one to understand anime without subtitles. My current N5 level isn't nearly enough. Story 45. Thankfully, I'm already bilingual because I think Spanish is easily one of the most useful second languages to know as an American. But I'd say Tewa, as the language and its dialects are nearing extinction, and Tewa is very much a deep part of my heritage. As with a lot of indigenous languages, it's difficult to learn. Story 46. When I was single, I would have said Spanish because I live in Los Angeles and enjoy touching boobies, but now I'm taken. So Mandarin seems like the most practical choice. Story 47. I never thought I would say this because there are so many other languages that I am more interested in, but it is actually at the point now where I have to say Spanish. It would simply be so convenient. Story 48. I want to learn Spanish so I can speak with my girlfriend's family better. Specifically her grandmother, who speaks little to no English. They are always so kind to me, and despite an 898-day Duolingo streak, I communicate like a child. Story 49. Japanese, since I'm watching Shogun as I type this. But I've always found Russian fascinating, so I might pick that. I already know German, Spanish, and French. Story 50. Arabic because it's my dad's native language, and unfortunately, I cannot speak it at all. I just know some words, and that's it. I'm trying to learn, but it's hard to find motivation. Story 51. Mandarin Chinese so I can run away to mainland China and start fresh, totally anonymous and away from the bad stuff that's happened to me in this lifetime. It's wishful thinking. One day I'll go for a trip and love every moment of it. Story 52. French. My nieces only speak French, and I know a bit, but not enough to have a full relationship with them. I'd like to be able to call them and have a fluent conversation with them. Story 53. I live near the border, and I can understand German speech, but I can't talk back. I meet a lot of Germans, and it would make my life easier in general.